Good evening, everybody. If you would, grab a Bible. Let's turn to John chapter 5. John 5. We'll be centering our thoughts and our study in this place, although we will definitely go to some other places. But this is a great place to have your Bible open, or if you're using some kind of digital device, to have that open to John chapter 5. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We have visitors with us. We are so excited that you're here. We are encouraged by your presence, what it says about you, what it says about the Lord, what it says about your devotion to Him, to want to learn about Jesus tonight. And especially, I want to say a word to those who might be here who are in need of some kind of spiritual healing, something that you have broken in your life, some problem that is nagging at you, some struggle that you have you can't seem to get over. And I just want you to have that in the forefront of your mind tonight. Whatever that may be for you, whatever you have come into this building carrying, that Jesus is the great physician and that He can heal and He can bless and He can lift our burdens. So I want you to think about that with me tonight. Let's read beginning in John 5 and verse 2. John 5 and verse 2, it says, "Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool in Aramaic called Bethesda, which has 5 roofed colonnades. In these lay a multitude of invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man who was there who had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been there a long time, He said to him, 'Do you want to be healed?' The sick man answered Him, 'Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am going, another steps down before me.' Jesus said to him, 'Get up, take up your bed and walk.' And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked." Take a minute to just imagine this man's life. He has been an invalid. He has been lame, unable to walk for 38 years. Think about how that would make even the easiest tasks incredibly difficult. Think about how much help you would need to do basic things, to be 38 years an invalid. Think about how hard it would be to make a living, to support yourself. 38 years. And at some point, this man probably was brought to this pool where healing was believed to happen when the water is stirred up. And so there is this great crowd of sick people gathered around the pool of Bethesda. He has been there, verse 6 says, a long time. And the pitiful reason why he is still there after all this time is that when the water is stirred up, he has no one to carry him down to the water. It is just sort of a sad thought, isn't it? That every time the water is stirred up, every time there could be healing, everyone who's faster and more able or with better help rushes down before him, and he cannot be healed. So Jesus asks him a strange question. Look again at verse 6. In verse 6, Jesus asks him, "Do you want to be healed?" Now you might think that's a strange question to the point of being offensive. That Jesus is saying to the man, "Hey, what's the problem? Do you want to be healed or not?" To which I think the man, if he was feeling sassy, might reply, "What do you think, Jesus? Do I want to be healed?" What kind of question is that? And yet I want you to consider that there may be more in that question than is apparent at first glance. Because not everyone who is sick wants to be healed. So I want you to think about that question with me tonight. Do you want to be healed? We've been studying this week Jesus' miracles, specifically the miracles of healing. And I told you, and I'm just going to keep saying this all week, that the reasons we're doing that are because first, they get a lot of press in the Gospels, but we don't usually give them as much attention as the Gospel writers do. It's also because the lessons that are taught in Jesus' healings are deeper and wider than I think we give them credit for. We also relate to these people because we have physical and spiritual ailments, and we know what it is to struggle with that idea of not being healed. And most importantly, we want to keep connecting Jesus' healing to the spiritual healing He promises to all people who will come to Him. And so He asked this question, do you want to be healed? I want you to think about, tonight we're going to transition from what we've been doing. I told you this the other day. The first 3 lessons in our series, what we studied Sunday and last night, have to do with Jesus and His power, who He is and what He can do. But tonight and the next 2 nights, we're going to focus instead of on Jesus, on our response to Jesus' healing power. Because Jesus' healings draw something out of people. They're not just about Him, they're also about the healed. And I want us to think about what we can learn. As we've read these stories, one thing that we've noticed is that people aren't always happy when Jesus heals. Isn't that strange? For example, healing the paralytic made the onlookers angry. Who can forgive sins but God alone? Casting out demons makes the pig's owners beg him to leave. Makes some of the religious leaders say he does this by the power of Beelzebub. Raising Lazarus makes some people want to kill Jesus and kill Lazarus. Not everyone who is healed likes it or wants it. So it's not such a foolish question when Jesus says, do you want to be healed? And what I want to do tonight is just sort of take that question in two directions, because both of them show us something about our healing and our need to express a desire for Jesus to heal us. The first direction I want to go in is to just ask the question, are you happy where you are? Do you want to be healed, or are you just fine as is? So before Jesus does anything to the man, he wants to know, is the transformation I can bring in you, is that even wanted? Or are you just good, sitting by the pool for the rest of your life, just sitting there watching the water stirred up? Do you want to be healed, or are you happy where you are? Just because a man is sitting with a multitude of infirmed people by a pool known for healing them doesn't mean he wants to be healed. In fact, it may also beg the question, if you want to be healed, why haven't you been? What's in your way? That's the way the man takes the question. Look at verse 7. The sick man answered him, Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I am going, another steps down before me. He says, of course I want to be healed, but I don't have anyone to help me. Maybe he even thinks Jesus is going to do that for him. Jesus is here. Jesus can help me down and put me in the water. That way I can be healed. But he is insisting that my inability to be healed is not a lack of desire. It's a lack of means. I just can't get down there. Verse 8, Jesus said to him, get up, take up your bed and walk. And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked. Jesus gives 3 commands: get up, take up your bed, and walk. And with those words, he heals the man and sets him free. In fact, he is basically telling him, hey, get out of here. You don't need to be here anymore. Go somewhere else. Get up, take up your bed, and leave, because this is not a place for a person who is as well as you now are. Do you want to be healed, or are you happy where you are? I hope you hear that the question takes the focus off of Jesus and onto the man. Do you want to be healed? Jesus is offering it. He can do it. But does the man desire it? And it makes us ask about ourselves and our desires. What do we really want? We can say we want some things, but are we just happy doing what we're doing, being who we are? Leave your marker or your finger here in John 5. We'll come back in a moment. Let's go over to Mark chapter 5. Mark 5. This is another story of a person who is pitiful, but I'll just suggest that she is a bit more determined than the lame man that we started with. Mark chapter 5, and I want to read beginning in verse 25. As Jesus is walking, he is on his way to Jairus' house because Jairus' daughter is sick, and there is a great crowd around him as he goes. Verse 25 of Mark 5, and there was a woman who had suffered a discharge of blood for 12 years and who had suffered much under many physicians and had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard the reports about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, if I touch even his garments, I will be made well. And immediately the flow of blood dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. And Jesus, perceiving in himself that power had gone out from him, immediately turned about in the crowd and said, who touched my garments? And his disciples said to him, you see the crowd pressing around you, and yet you say, who touched me? And he looked around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease. So this woman is also pitiful, but she is more determined. She has what Mark calls a hemorrhage, and she has had it for 12 years, which, by the way, would have made her continually unclean. before God and in the assembly. Did she want to be healed, or was she just happy where she was? Well, it's pretty clear she wanted to be healed because it says she has spent all her money on physicians. Everything she had spent trying to be healed, but instead, as sometimes happens, she goes to the doctors for healing and the doctors made her worse. And so, what are you going to do? And somehow she hears about Jesus and she comes to believe maybe this is the man who can finally heal me. And she comes to him. She does not expect him to say some special words over her. She just wants to touch the edge of his garment, his fringes. And she knows if I can just touch his fringes, I'll be healed. And what I love about this story is that this is a miracle that could have gone completely unnoticed by everyone. And yet Jesus knows it, and the woman knows it, and he stops the crowd. Hey, everybody, stop. Who touched me? And he calls to the woman and has her tell her story to the crowd so that everyone can learn not only about Jesus' power, but about her desire to be healed. Her faith has made her well. Do you want to be healed? I think we know the answer that woman would give, don't we? Yes, she wants to be healed, and that's why she turns to Jesus. And so she is healed. So let me just ask you, are you just happy where you are? People live all the time with ailments that would be easily solvable if they just maybe went and asked, if they went to a doctor and got some kind of medicine. Sometimes if they just would Google it, they could figure out, oh, that's what I have. I had no idea. That was the problem. I just never looked into it. I just lived with it. You see, you have to want to be healed. If you're just happy where you are, you're not going to get any better. Something, though, when we're in that position, pushes us over the edge. Maybe it's that you start to feel worse. And maybe you reach a point where you say, I'm just fed up with this. I'm ready to be better. Maybe we get scared and we say, I don't know, that pain that I'm feeling, maybe there's something worse going on. And so I need to go get that checked out. Or maybe someone we love says, hey, would you do this for me? Just go see the doctor just for me. But something pushes us over the edge. Maybe we say, I'm being a bad example to my kids. I don't want my kids to be stubborn like I'm stubborn. I'll go and I'll do. Something pushes us over the edge to say, I'm not happy where I am anymore. I'm going to go seek some kind of healing. And the main point I want to make is, of course, not about why we do or don't go to the doctor. The main point I want to make is that this is especially true spiritually. Do you know that we can live for decades sick? Everyone can see it. Our family knows he's got a problem, but he's not doing anything about it. And people in our church, they look at us and they say, man, he's got an issue. Everybody can see it. People at work see it. People around town see it. Anyone who knows us says, yeah, he's sick. He needs some help. But do you want to be healed, or are you just happy where you are? I am talking. Sometimes there are unbelievers who live that way. I think all of us know people who are not believers in Jesus, who are just always perpetually unhappy. They are always complaining. They are dissatisfied with the state of the world. They're frustrated with their own struggles. They're worn out because they have terrible relationships with other people. And it's so easy when you talk to such people to say, something's wrong here. Don't you see there's an issue? But until they decide they're not happy where they are, they want to be healed, there's really not much you can do. But I am also talking about Christians who have out-of-control tempers, or who just can't stop talking bad about other people, or who have miserable marriages, or who have secret porn addictions, or who are persistently self-centered. And it may be that if that's you, that everybody knows that you have a problem. You may know it. You may even tell other people, yeah, I'm a hothead. That's just kind of the way I am. Well, are you just happy where you are? You just good with that? Or do you want to be healed? Because there has to be a desire for the healing Jesus offers before anything is going to change. He has the power. Do we have the will? Do you want to be healed? Are you happy where you are? Let's go back to John 5. The second direction I want to take this is that do you want to be healed also means will you do what's required? John 5 is an interesting miracle because it's one of the healings where we get a little bit of the follow-up. What happened after the healing? Which, by the way, wouldn't it be fascinating to have details about what happened after the healing with all of these people? Don't you want to know what happened to the paralytic the next couple of weeks after he began to walk? What was his life like? Here you see just a sketch of what happens with this lame man after he's healed. Look again, John 5 and verse 8. Jesus said to him, "Get up, take up your bed, and walk." And at once the man was healed, and he took up his bed and walked. Now that day was the Sabbath, so the Jews said to the man who had been healed, "It's the Sabbath, and it's not lawful for you to take up your bed." But he answered them, "The man who healed me, that man said to me, 'Take up your bed and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up your bed and walk'?" Now the man who had been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, as there was a crowd in the place. Afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you are well. Sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had healed him. This little follow-up is so interesting to me. It makes me wonder what kind of interactions Jesus had with people he healed after they were healed. He goes to the man and he has some, instructions for him afterward. I suspect he is saying more than just congratulations. He says, "See, you are well," verse 14, "sin no more, that nothing worse may happen to you." Jesus says, let this be more than you saying, "Wow, I can use my legs again." Let this be a changing moment in your life where everything from this point forward is different. Sin no more. All the frustration and the anger that you have felt for 38 years, let it motivate you to live sin-free. Let it be a beginning point for change. This is the way Jesus' healings work. He doesn't just say, "Good, you're better. See you later." Instead, he says, "Good, you're better. Now go live differently." And so this man does. He's told, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." What does he do? He rises, takes up his bed, and walks. Some of the Jewish leaders get in his face because it's the Sabbath. And he says, "Look, the guy who healed me, I didn't catch his name, but he told me to take my bed, so I'm going to take my bed. So you can give me a citation for carrying something on the Sabbath if you want, but I'm going to do what he said." And you can see in the man, there's a little pep in his step. There's more going on than just walking. A healing like this should produce a flood of gratitude and renewed living that changes this man forever. So often, when Jesus heals, he doesn't just heal. He takes time with the person and draws them out. He wants to connect with their faith and their desperation and their need. He wants them to say, "I need this from you." He wants to draw out their faith. There's a persistent problem in the medical field that I think might help us here. I don't know if we have medical professionals in the audience. If so, which we do at home where I preach this, they actually really strongly agreed with what I'm about to say. Studies estimate that 50% of U.S. patients do not follow their doctor's instructions. 50%. So, for example, they don't fill the prescription that their doctor prescribes for them. They don't take the medicine. They don't make the changes recommended. So let's just sum that up. That means we go to medical professionals, pay them lots of money, and then completely ignore what they tell us we need to do to get better, right? And 50% of people do that. I don't mean to call anybody out, but that means half this audience, we don't obey the doctor, right? Now, I'm not advocating for obeying doctors. I don't care about that. I am saying, do you want to be healed? is not such a far-fetched question, is it? Because we kind of have a stubbornness about us that says, oh, sure, I'd like to feel better, but when the doctor comes and says, well, something about you needs to change then. When you've had, as I know many of us have, and I have too, the doctor say to you, you cannot continue eating the way you're eating, or you will get sick and die. Well, what do we do then? Well, I don't know. I like to eat. That's tough. Suddenly the healing, the life that I know I want, it comes into contact with this question. Will I do what's required? So I want to suggest a few things that Jesus' healings require. Because not only does he require them in the healings he does physically, but they are also requirements for what he wants to do in us spiritually. The first is vulnerability and humility. There is vulnerability just in asking, just in saying, I need to be healed. I'm not whole. I'm weak. I need you. I cannot do it myself. I want you to go with me over to Matthew chapter 15. Matthew 15. As we go through this part of the lesson, we're going to look at several different healings. And I just want you to see how this is a consistent pattern where Jesus draws out people and tries to lead them toward doing what's required. Matthew chapter 15. Let's read beginning in verse 21. Matthew 15 and verse 21. It says, and Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. But he did not answer her a word. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, send her away, for she is crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But she came and knelt before him, saying, Lord, help me. And he answered, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. She said, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire. And her daughter was healed instantly. This woman is desperate, but I hope you notice that she gets a cold shoulder from Jesus. Jesus is brusque with her. First, he ignores her. That's verse 23. He doesn't say a word to her. Then he gives a brusque response about how I'm not here for you. It's so bad that she won't leave, and the disciples say, Jesus, just send her away. She just won't be quiet. And then when she says, Lord, she comes and kneels before him and says, Lord, help me. She puts herself in this position of supplication. Help me. And Jesus says, I'm not going to take the children's bread and give it to the dogs. I hope you hear how dismissive Jesus is. But right after that, I hope you hear how passionate this woman is. I don't care what you call me, Jesus. Call me a dog, but heal my little girl. I just don't care. I want you to notice that there are so many places in this story where the woman could have gotten offended. You know, that's the thing we do in our time, right? We get offended. You say the wrong thing to me, you call me the wrong name, you disrespect me, I'm out. I don't want to hear any more from Jesus. Do you know what that guy called me? Do you know I went to him? He didn't even pay any attention to me. I couldn't even get him to listen. I'm sitting here kneeling in front of him, and he's just insulting me. How dare he? There's no pretense here. This woman just says, I need help. Call me what you want to call me. Let it be what it is, but I need your healing. And Jesus says, great is your faith. Now, before you begin to think that Jesus is being rude or mean or showing prejudice or something like that, I do not believe that is what's happening in this story. I believe that Jesus has one goal, that he has the end in mind, which is to say this woman has great faith, and he is going to help her show it. Here it is. And by the end of the story, it's clear to everyone, great is your faith, because she is vulnerable and humble before Jesus. Vulnerability and humility. That means I have problems I can't solve. I need help. And I have to clear this hurdle before I can really say I want to be healed. I have to be able to say I need help. And I'm impressed that Jesus often makes it a prerequisite to his healing, to make sure people know you need to ask and you need to humble yourself before the one who has power you do not. Let me just say, when we talk about spiritual healing, that spiritual healing requires the humility and the vulnerability to confess to people my struggles and my sins, the shameful secrets I have, so that you know me, and you know me deep down. And if we are more concerned with keeping up appearances and reputations than we are with healing, then we have to ask the question, will you do what's required? Sometimes, when it comes to vulnerability and humility, we say things like, I just don't want to hear what people would say if they knew. I just don't think I could face people. Or as one brother told me, I don't want to come back to the Lord with my tail between my legs. As if showing weakness before God is some kind of problem. As if you and I, we can't be humble before each other when this is all Jesus taught us to be. So, you say you want to be healed. That's wonderful. But will you humble yourself? If I want to be healed, I will do whatever it takes. I won't worry anymore about what people might say, about how people may know me and think less of me. So what? I need to be healed. Second, will you do what's required in terms of persistence? Look again at verse 23 of our story here. It says, but he did not answer her a word, and his disciples came and begged him, saying, send her away, for she is crying out after us. Send her away. How many times do we have to tell her no? Do you have to tell her no before she gets the hint? This woman's faith will not stop. She is persistent, and you can see it in the story. But I want to go over to Luke chapter 18. Luke 18. This is one of my favorite stories in the Gospels, because we have another man here who is so hungry and so desperate that he will not be denied. Luke 18 and verse 35. It says, as he drew near to Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. And hearing a crowd go by, he inquired what this meant. They told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. And he cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And those who were in front rebuked him, telling him to be silent. But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stopped and commanded him to be brought to him. And when he came near, he asked him, what do you want me to do for you? By the way, I love that question. Everybody in the whole crowd knows what he wants him to do for him. He's been yelling at him. Lord, let me recover my sight. And Jesus said to him, recover your sight. Your faith has made you well. And immediately he recovered his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. Do you think that man wanted to be healed? He just hears Jesus going by because he can't see. And he says, what's going on? They tell him, and he just starts shouting. This is his tool. This is what I have. I can yell. I can be unpleasant. And people say, hey, shh. We're trying to do the Jesus thing here. Shh. And it says he cried out all the more. Don't try to shut me up. I need to be healed. Persistence. Are you willing to do what's required, even when it means you have to persist? Persistence is one of the ways we show our desperation and our need. We're saying, I've got nowhere else to go. I need help, and I won't be denied. I'm going to keep yelling. You tell me to be quiet, I'll yell all the more, because I need what Jesus offers me. And persistence is also a key to our hearts. I learned this as a father, that children ask for all kinds of things all the time. And so you learn, you can't just say that everything they ask for at all times is really important. It's not. But when a child asks for the same thing over and over and over again, over weeks and months, and I'm not talking about candy bars, when they ask for something that's important to them, what you learn is this matters to them. They need this. They are hungry for it. They are desperate for it. And even with a parent, their persistence wins you over because they are showing, I care about this, you are the one to get it for me, and I'm going to keep coming. And so Jesus tells stories about persistence, like a man with a friend at midnight who comes to get something for him, and he just won't go away. Or the widow who needs justice from her adversary, and she goes to the judge, and she just won't go away, and she nags him into doing her will. Persistence. Will you do what's required? In spiritual matters, we're going to talk about this more tomorrow night. In spiritual matters, healing is a process that often takes time. We're not transformed immediately. There are steps and stages. Sometimes growth is slow. So do I really, really want to be healed? Do I want to be transformed? Or am I going to give up at the first sign of resistance? You see how in these stories Jesus is saying, no, keep coming, keep coming. Show your faith. Do what's required. Be persistent. Will you do what's required regarding sacrifice and change? We've already addressed that with the lame man. Go and sin no more. Let this be the beginning of something new. But I want you to look at Luke 19 with me. Luke 19, the next chapter over. In fact, it's the next verses. Luke 19 and verse 1. He entered Jericho and was passing through. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. And he was seeking to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd, he could not, because he was small in stature. So he ran on ahead and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was about to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today. So he hurried and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all grumbled. He has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said to the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. And Jesus said to him, Today salvation has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. Something has gotten a hold of Zacchaeus. He wants to see Jesus. And I love this story because it takes a spiritual lesson and puts it in physical terms. What are you going to do when you can't see Jesus because you've got something blocking you? He's a short man, and so he climbs up a tree. Think about these people. When the woman is crying out for her daughter to be healed, don't you think if Jesus had told her, actually you have to go on a journey of 1,000 miles, don't you think she'd have done it? When the woman with the hemorrhage comes to him and wants to touch the edges of his garment, don't you think if he had said, you know what you need to do is you need to go on this great journey, don't you think she'd have done it? If he had said to Zacchaeus, here's what it's going to take. It's going to take your money. Don't you think he'd have done it? It's exactly what happens. Zacchaeus wants to see Jesus, climb up in the tree. Zacchaeus says, come to my house. He's willing to come. And then something happens in Zacchaeus' house. Jesus is the flashpoint for a transformation for Zacchaeus. Today, verse 9, salvation has come to this house. And the salvation, of course, has to do with the change Zacchaeus needs to make. In verse 8, the half of my goods I give to the poor. If I have defrauded anyone of anything, I restore it fourfold. Zacchaeus changes. The people know him as a sinner, but today salvation comes to his house. Here's what I'm trying to say. Often, Jesus offers to heal us with the condition that we stop sinning, we give something up, that we submit fully to him, that we make changes. And our willingness to make those changes signals whether we really want to be healed. There it is in black and white. Do you want to be healed? Well, will you do what Jesus tells you to do to be healed? It's just that simple. So when I have a spiritual problem, I cannot just ask Jesus to heal me and then stay the same. I can't say, well, Jesus, I want to be mean and selfish, but I also want you to fix my relationships. It just won't work, will it? I don't really want to be healed if I'm not really willing to change. Or I can't say, clean up the consequences of my immorality so I can go do it again. It just won't work. The measure of my desire is the measure of my change. Do you want to be healed? Well, will you do what it takes? Will you give up what Jesus calls you to? And then finally, let's just say this. Will you do what is required? There is gratitude that is also part of what Jesus expects and requires for those he heals. Turn back a page or two to Luke 17. Luke 17. When we are healed, it should prompt not just a desire, but definitely a desire to say thank you, and then a desire to live a life that is commensurate with the gratitude we feel. Luke 17 and verse 11. On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. When he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? And he said to him, Rise and go your way, your faith has made you well. So as they go, Jesus says, Go show yourselves to the priests. As they go, they are healed. And Jesus is frustrated that they do not naturally think of coming back to praise God and, yes, to thank him. Where are the 9? Where are the 9? The only one who comes back is presumably the one who knows the least about God, the one who is a Samaritan. I just want to say this. I want you to hear me. If we're really desperate and we really want what Jesus offers, we look at our lives and the mess that we've made of them, and we see our lack of direction. We see our need for a Savior. We see our need for someone who is strong enough to defeat death that we can put our faith in because we're powerless in the face of death. When we see that when we have done evil, it has always been bad for us, and when we have done good, it's always been a blessing, we begin to make those connections. When we are desperate and hungry, and we reach out and we cry out, and suddenly we find our burdens lifted, and we find people who are there to help us and rejoice with us, and we find new hope and new excitement for life, there is a natural impulse that should be triggered in that moment that says, somebody did something for me. I better thank them. And not just thank them in that, small child way where you say, someone told me to say thank you. But to live a life that says, this means something to me. And whether someone insists on me saying the words or not, I will live in gratitude to honor the person who has done something so awesome for me. So it's time for us to face the question, do you want to be healed? Are you happy where you are? Are there sicknesses, problems, corruption in your life that you are ready to be done with? And that's it. It's over. Jesus can heal, but do you want to be healed? That's the question. And then there is this, will you do what's required? Humble yourself before him, seeking him persistently, giving up what needs to be removed, and living in gratitude to him. I want you to know this is what we're doing. This is who we are. You've come into this building tonight to be with a group of Christians, a church. We are a group of people who are in the process of healing, that Jesus is at work on us and in us. And we invite you to that, not because we are perfect or we've got it all figured out, but because He is at work in us, and we want to invite you to Him. So what about you? Do you want to be healed? We're going to sing a song to invite you to come to the Lord Jesus. If you have questions, concerns, specific issues with things that we've talked about tonight, I would love to sit down and talk to you about it. You can talk to any of us. We would love to discuss God's call on our lives and specifically what that might mean for you. But if you are ready in this moment, say, I know what I need to do. Especially, I know that I need to leave behind who I've been and give my life to Jesus and put my faith in Him and be buried in baptism with Him to be raised to walk in new life. We would love it. We would rejoice. We want nothing more than for you to come make that known tonight. And so we'll sing this song, and as we do, we want to encourage you. So stand with us and sing, and come to the front if you're subject to the invitation.